When a viral video shatters BTS's unity, secrets unravel. Was Jimin truly to blame? Or is something far darker at play behind the scenes? Why are you laughing? Jungkook's voice cracked, his eyes swollen with tears. But V just smiled, unblinking, as if nothing had happened. The room was suffocating. Flickering fluorescent lights cast erratic shadows across the floor of the backstage dressing room. The silence that followed Jungkook's question was thicker than the tension in the air, broken only by the faint hum of a fan oscillating uselessly in the corner. Jungkook stood hunched in the middle of the room, fists clenched, face flushed from more than just crying. His voice, usually melodic and composed, had turned ragged. In his trembling hands he held a phone. Its screen paused on a now infamous clip. The laughter, Taehyung's laughter. Behind him, the mirror reflected the chaos. Makeup smeared, jackets flung to the floor, and a team of staff members frozen just outside the frame of the video. Everyone had seen it. Army had already dissected it in thousands of comments. But no one knew the full story. Yet, say something, Jungkook begged. Just tell me it wasn't real. V didn't answer. He looked at his friend. No, his brother, with an unreadable expression. Calm, detached. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. A distance, like he was watching from the outside. And in the corner, unnoticed by the cameras or the fans, Jimin stood in the doorway, silent, his face pale as chalk. The Bangtan House, as fans dubbed it, had always been a place of comfort. But lately it felt different. There were whispers in the hallways, unfinished sentences, eye contact that lingered too long or didn't happen at all. Jimin had felt it first. He wasn't sure if it was just exhaustion or something deeper, something colder settling into the group like a slow frost. Taehyung had grown quieter, disappearing for hours without explanation. Jungkook had become jumpier, as if expecting betrayal around every corner. Even Namjoon, ever the calm center, seemed burdened by secrets. But it all began with a missing USB. A small, unmarked flash drive, left unattended on the studio desk. Yoongi had been the last one to see it. It had a working file, he muttered that day, voice laced with confusion and something like fear. A compilation, security cam footage, personal recordings. Stuff we never approved for documentation. 3 days later, the video leaked. The scene in the video was undeniable. Jungkook in tears, V chuckling in the background. No context. No explanation. The internet exploded. #ProtectJungkook trended worldwide within minutes. Clips were edited, slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. Armies speculated. Was it a fight? A prank gone wrong? A nervous breakdown? But the backlash didn't fall on V alone. Because, in the final second of the clip, as Jungkook broke down sobbing and stormed out of frame, a shadow moved behind the curtain. A glimpse of someone watching. Fans froze the frame, enhanced the image, and screamed one name in unison. Jimin. Why was he just standing there? Did he film it? Is he the reason Jungkook cried? The storm of accusations hit Jimin like a hurricane. He hadn't left his apartment in 2 days. His phone buzzed non-stop. Texts from the members, calls from managers, missed messages from his parents. But he couldn't answer. He watched the video over and over again. Not because he needed to, but because he couldn't believe what he'd seen either. The look on Taehyung's face. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't mocking. It was empty, emotionless. And that scared Jimin more than anything. Because Taehyung wasn't just his bandmate. He was the one who used to laugh the loudest at their dumbest jokes. The one who stayed up late with him during tours, whispering dreams into the darkness like kids at summer camp. But something had changed, and Jimin knew he had to find out what. Backstage, the tension finally snapped. I didn't film it, Jimin whispered. But I know who did. Both Jungkook and Taehyung looked at him. One filled with pain, the other with that same vacant stare. Jimin took a shaky breath and said the name neither of them expected. Seokjin. The room went dead silent. Seokjin. Jungkook echoed, voice hoarse, disbelief tangled in every syllable. Hyung? No, that's no. Taehyung's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened imperceptibly around the edge of the vanity, knuckles whitening. For the first time since the video leaked, his mask slipped, just for a second, and something flickered behind his eyes. Fear? Recognition? Jimin didn't blink. He was there. I saw him. The night the file went missing. Flashback. 7 days ago. Midnight. The old recording studio was off limits now, sealed off after the renovation. But Jimin couldn't sleep, and the hum of music leaking from the vents pulled him like a thread. He found the door cracked open, soft blue light spilling out. Inside, Seokjin sat alone, headphones on, eyes locked to the screen, watching something. Not editing, not producing, just watching. Jimin hadn't meant to spy, but what he saw froze him to the core. It was footage of them. Not just rehearsals or behind-the-scenes shots. Intimate moments. Vulnerable confessions. Fights they thought were private. Jungkook crying. Taehyung laughing. The exact moment now haunting the internet. And in the corner of the screen, just barely visible in the grainy footage, Jimin himself. Seokjin never turned around. He just said, in a voice too calm, "Privacy is a fragile illusion, isn't it, Jimin?" Now, in the dressing room, Jimin's voice was steady as he repeated the words. He said it like it meant nothing. Like we meant nothing. Jungkook shook his head. No. Hyung wouldn't. He wouldn't do that. But doubt had crept into his eyes. Memories rose like poison. Seokjin's sudden late-night absences. The way he always seemed to know what was going on, even when no one told him. The strange look he gave Taehyung just before the first show of the tour, when everyone else was laughing. And Taehyung still hadn't spoken. Say something, Jimin said, now turning to him. You were in on it, weren't you? Finally, Taehyung blinked. His voice was a whisper, like it had to fight its way out of his throat. I didn't know it would be used. Jungkook's head snapped toward him. Used for what? V looked at him, guilt pooling in his eyes. Seokjin told me he was compiling memories. For us, like a personal archive. He asked if I could record things, natural moments, real emotions. He said it would make us feel human again. And you believed him? Jimin's tone was sharp now, laced with disbelief and something deeper, betrayal. Taehyung looked down. I needed to. I thought it was therapy. I thought he was helping us. Jungkook backed away, almost stumbling over a chair. So this whole time, you were filming us? Even when we cried? Even when his breath caught? Even when I broke? No, V said quickly, stepping forward. I never filmed that night. I swear. I don't even know how he got it. Silence. Then Jimin said the one thing that no one else dared to admit. What if this isn't just about us? Taehyung looked up, startled. What do you mean? Jimin pulled out his phone and opened a folder. He hesitated before showing them the screen. A thumbnail image popped up. Grainy, low resolution, timestamped 2 years ago. It wasn't just BTS in the footage. It was staff members, trainees, people who'd been fired, people who'd disappeared from the industry quietly, faces forgotten, words recorded without consent. Someone's been collecting more than just memories, Jimin said. This is surveillance. This is control. And suddenly, it all made a twisted kind of sense. Why certain people never came back. Why others changed overnight. Why Seokjin, once the warmest soul among them, now smiled with eyes that didn't match. Jungkook's breath shook. Then what does he want from us now? Jimin's answer was immediate. Obedience. The door creaked. All three turned. Standing in the doorway, dressed in all black, his face unreadable, was Seokjin. Funny, he said quietly. I was hoping you'd figure it out sooner. The door clicked shut behind him. Darkness swallowed the room, and Seokjin smiled. Shall we talk? I only ever wanted to protect you, Seokjin said, his voice calm, almost mournful, as if they were old friends sitting down for tea instead of standing in the suffocating dark of a locked dressing room. No one moved. Jungkook was the first to speak, barely more than a breath. Protect us from what? Seekjin took a step forward, his shoes silent against the linoleum. From the world. From yourselves. From the collapse I saw coming years ago. Taehyung's voice cut through the silence, sharp and shaking. You leaked the video. Seekjin didn't deny it. It had to be done. To shake you awake. Jimin stepped in front of Jungkook, as if shielding him. You broke him. Seekjin looked directly at Jimin, and in his eyes there was no malice, only a deep, terrifying conviction. He was already broken. Jungkook flinched like he'd been struck. The lights flickered above them. Once, then again before buzzing back to life. A sudden hum filled the air, as if something mechanical had come online. Somewhere, deep in the walls, a low whirring sound began. What is that? Taehyung asked. Seekjin turned, slowly, and opened the mirrored panel behind the makeup table. It creaked open like the entrance to another world. Behind it was a screen, live footage, every room in the building, every hallway, every private space, dozens of windows showing every movement. And at the center, labeled in red, was a folder titled Bangtan_Archive_Final. Jimin's heart dropped. You've been watching everything. I've been preserving everything, Seekjin corrected gently. Do you know what people do with idols once they've outlived their usefulness? They chew you up. They erase you. I couldn't let that happen. Taehyung's voice was barely audible. So you turned us into a product. I turned you into legends, Seekjin said, stepping back. And legends never die. The room was spinning. Jungkook staggered backward and sank into a chair, his face pale. This is insane. You need help. Seekjin crouched in front of him, expression soft. You cried, and the world listened. They remembered why they loved you. The pain made them feel again. You used me? Jungkook said, tears forming again, but colder this time. You used all of us. No, Seekjin whispered. I saved you. Suddenly, the screens shifted. One by one, the feeds blinked out, black screens replacing surveillance. And then, a new window opened. A countdown. 1 hour. Jimin's stomach dropped. What is that? Seekjin stood, brushing dust from his sleeves. A reset. The archive deletes itself in 60 minutes. Every video, every file, all of it gone. Taehyung's eyes widened. Why would you? Because this phase is over, Seekjin replied. Now it's your turn to decide who you want to be. Jimin took a step forward, fury boiling just under the surface. You don't get to act like you're giving us a choice. But I am, Seekjin said. This group, this bond, it was real once. But lately it's just been a performance. I watched it die in real time. I gave you a way back. Now it's up to you to take it. He reached into his pocket and placed a small silver key on the table. The server room is behind the old practice studio. If you want to save the archive, save the truth, you have 1 hour. Then he walked past them, slow and deliberate. Jungkook didn't look up as Seekjin passed. But just as he reached the door, he whispered, You were our oldest young. Seekjin paused. And that's why it had to be me. The door shut behind him. Jimin didn't wait. He grabbed the key. We have to go. Now. Taehyung hesitated. What if this is still part of it? Another game. Jungkook stood, wiping his face. His voice was raw but solid. Then we end the game on our terms. The three of them moved together, fast and silent, through the maze of empty corridors. Behind them the timer ticked down. 59:12, 59:11, 59:10, and somewhere in the building Seekjin watched, waiting. The hallway stretched like a tunnel through a nightmare, the overhead lights flickering sporadically as if the building itself knew what was about to unfold. Jimin's fingers curled around the cold metal key in his pocket, his pulse thudding against it like a warning drum. He didn't speak. None of them did. Their footsteps echoed through the empty space, each one carrying the weight of betrayal, fear, and something else neither of them wanted to name: doubt. We're getting close, Jungkook said, voice hushed. As they approached the fire exit leading to the abandoned wing of the old practice studio, he hesitated, hand on the rusted door. What if he locked it? Jimin slipped the key into the knob. Clicked. The door creaked open. The hallway beyond was shrouded in darkness. Dust hung in the air like ghosts of the past, and the smell old sweat, rotting wood, forgotten memories, hit them like a wave. The walls were still lined with old posters of their earlier eras. Wings, Love Yourself, Map of the Soul. Smiling faces frozen in time, unaware of the storm waiting years ahead. Keep moving, Jimin said, stepping over broken floor tiles, his breath visible in the cold that seemed to intensify with every step. Taehyung trailed behind, silent, eyes darting between the shadows. Then clack, a sound behind them. They all turned, tense. Nothing. Probably just the wind, Jungkook said, trying to convince himself. But he moved closer to the others anyway. At the end of the hallway, a metal door stood out, sleek, untouched by decay. A keypad blinked faintly next to it. Jimin pulled out the key again, but Taehyung stopped him. There's a camera, he whispered. He's watching. Jimin didn't hesitate. He turned to the lens and stared straight into it. Enough games, he said. You wanted us awake? We're awake. Let us in. A pause. Then, with a soft hiss, the door unlocked. Inside, the server room was nothing like the rest of the building. Sterile. Cold. Bright white lights hummed above towers of blinking machines, each one labeled with names and codes that sent chills down their spines. JK_confession_0518, V_nightcam_0211, Jam_panicatech_studio. Rows and rows of their pain, their truths. Jungkook moved to the nearest drive. His hand hovered over it. What if we destroy it all? We erase it, it's like none of it happened, Jimin said quietly. We let it stay, and someone finds it later. Or worse, he uses it again. Taehyung circled the server rack. There's a console here. I can try to override the countdown. Jimin narrowed his eyes. You sure? No, Taehyung replied, already typing. But I can try. Jungkook walked through the maze of servers, scanning files, lost in names and dates that marked their darkest moments. He archived everything. The day I screamed at Namjoon. The night Yoongi locked himself in the studio. Even when I cried during that live stream last year. It wasn't just to preserve us, Jimin said. He was preparing for something. Taehyung swore under his breath. The countdown is encrypted. We stop one, it triggers another. He's layered it. Jimin looked at the screen. 42:08. Then a new file appeared, automatically playing on the main monitor. It was a video. Seokjin sitting alone in front of the camera. Eyes red. Voice hollow. If you're watching this, it means I failed. They froze. I wanted to make something permanent. Something no one could twist. But I lost control. I thought I could hold everything together by documenting it. By shaping the narrative. But in the end, I became just another editor. He looked straight at the camera. At them. There are things I've done you'll never forgive. Things I can't forgive myself for. But this archive, it's yours now. Do what you want. Erase it. Release it. Hide it. Just don't let us disappear. Not like this. The screen cut to black. None of them moved. Then Jimin spoke, voice low and fierce. He didn't do this out of love. He did it out of fear. No, Taehyung said. He did it out of grief. Jungkook's hand hovered over the shutdown switch. Are we ready to let it go? The screen flickered again. A new message appeared. Unauthorized access detected. Remote override initiated. Countdown accelerated. New time. 9 minutes and 59 seconds. The room plunged into red light. Alarms blared. He's taking it out of our hands, Jimin growled. We have 10 minutes. Taehyung spun toward the panel. We can still copy it. Extract the core files to a drive. Jungkook's voice cut through the chaos. Then we split up. Jimin helped Tae. I'll hold off whoever's coming. What? No. Jimin turned. I can buy us time, Jungkook said, already backing toward the hallway. If he wants to stop us, he'll come here. Let him find me first. Taehyung was already at work, sweat running down his temple as lines of code blurred across the screen. Jimin hesitated, then nodded once. Don't be a hero, he said. Jungkook smiled just barely. Too late. He disappeared down the hall. The door sealed shut behind him. The timer kept ticking. 8:33, 8:32, 8:31. Jungkook's footsteps echoed through the corridor, fast and steady, heart hammering in rhythm with the alarm blaring faintly behind him. The red emergency lights pulsed like a heartbeat along the walls, casting flickering shadows that danced with every turn he took. He didn't know what he was looking for, only that someone would be coming, and he had to intercept them before they reached Jimin and Taehyung. He rounded a corner and froze. There was someone standing at the far end of the hallway. Not Seokjin. Namjoon. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. Hyung. Namjoon's eyes met his, dark, unreadable, rimmed with exhaustion. He didn't move. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, like he'd seen the worst and chosen to carry it alone. You shouldn't be here, Namjoon said quietly. I could say the same to you, Jungkook replied, stepping closer. I tried to stop him, Namjoon whispered. But by the time I realized what he was building, it was already too big. He had everything. Your voice notes, our fights, my breakdowns, things I said when I thought no one was listening. You knew, Jungkook said, his voice laced with betrayal. All this time and you said nothing. Namjoon nodded slowly. Because I thought maybe he was right. Silence. I thought, Namjoon continued, if he could capture the truth, maybe it would justify everything we lost along the way. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. We didn't ask to be saved like this. Namjoon stepped closer. You're here to destroy it? No, Jungkook said. I'm here to protect them while they decide. Namjoon's jaw tensed. Then I'll help you buy time. Jungkook blinked. You'll fight him? I already did, Namjoon said. And I lost. But maybe now, I can fix one thing. Back in the server room, 514. Taehyung's fingers flew across the keyboard, eyes locked to the screen. Extraction at 64%. I'm routing it through an external line. Seokjin can't stop it remotely if we stay under the main surveillance grid. Jimin paced behind him, tense, watching the clock tick down. Do we even know what we're saving? Not all of it, Taehyung said. But there's a file labeled failsafe_phoenix_01. It's encrypted, but it's hidden deep in the system. He didn't want anyone to find it. Jimin knelt beside him. He never does anything without a reason. Then the screen flickered. The extraction paused. A video auto-launched, hijacking the interface. They both leaned in. It was Seokjin again, but not in a room. It was a recording from a rooftop. The camera was shaky, handheld. The wind howled around him. This is the night I realized I wasn't in control anymore, Seokjin said. Eyes wet, face raw. There was too much noise, too much weight. I watched you all start to disappear, piece by piece. And I thought, if I could hold on to your voices, your pain, your love, maybe I could rebuild you when it all fell apart. He looked off camera. I was wrong. The screen cut to static. Then the extraction resumed, 72%. Jimin's voice trembled. He knew this would end him. Taehyung didn't stop typing. He planned for it anyway. In the corridor, 327. Footsteps. Jungkook turned and there he was, Seokjin. His face was calm, almost gentle. I told you not to follow, he said. And yet here you are, Jungkook replied, stepping between him and the server door. Let me through, Seokjin said. There's still time to end this quietly. Jungkook stood his ground. You always thought you were the only one who could protect us. But maybe what we needed was the truth. Even if it's ugly. Seokjin sighed. You still think this is about truth? He reached into his coat pocket. Jungkook tensed. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a flash drive. Seokjin held it up. This is the original. Before the edits. Before the story I shaped. Jungkook stared at it. Why give it to me? Because you never lied, Seokjin said. Not even when it hurt. Behind them, the door burst open. Namjoon stepped into view, panting. Seokjin looked at him, eyes soft. I'm tired, June. Namjoon stepped forward. Then let it go. Seokjin hesitated. Then he dropped the flash drive. Jungkook caught it. Back in the server room 104. Extraction complete, Taehyung said, yanking the drive from the port. We got it. Jimin turned toward the door. Just as it opened, Jungkook stood there holding the original flash drive. Namjoon stepped in behind him, arms crossed. They were all there, except one. Where's Seokjin? Taehyung asked. Jungkook looked down at the drive. He didn't follow. 043. They stared at each other. Jimin moved to the main console. His hand hovered over the final switch. Erase the rest? He asked. Jungkook nodded. We keep the truth. We let the ghosts go. Taehyung placed his hand over Jimin's. Together, they flipped the switch. The servers screamed, lights flashing violently. Then silence. All of it gone. The hum was gone. No more blinking servers. No more alarms. Just a stillness that filled the room like fog after a storm. Jimin stood motionless, eyes locked on the dead console screen, heart pounding in the absence of sound. Taehyung slowly lowered his hand, his breathing uneven. Jungkook leaned against the wall, the original flash drive clutched tightly in his fist like a relic salvaged from wreckage. Namjoon was the first to speak. It's done. But no one answered. Outside the server room, morning light began to pierce the boarded windows of the old building. The dust sparkled as it floated through the shafts of gold. It should have felt like freedom. Didn't. Taehyung finally turned. Where is he now? Jungkook didn't look up. He walked out the back. Said he was going to where it all began. The roof? Jimin asked, voice hoarse. Namjoon nodded. He used to go there after every tour. Said the height helped him feel small again. No one had the strength to argue, so they climbed. Each step of the stairwell groaned beneath them, like the building itself was waking from a long sleep. As they neared the top, the air grew sharper, thinner, quieter. Then they stepped out onto the rooftop. And there he was, Seokjin, sitting on the edge, legs dangling over the ledge like a boy watching clouds. He didn't turn around, just stared out at the city, bathed in early sunlight. You came, he said. Jungkook stepped forward first. We still had questions. Seokjin gave a soft laugh, almost inaudible over the breeze. I figured you might. They didn't move closer, just stood there, giving him space. Jimin's voice cut the silence. Why the failsafe? Why give us the choice? If you already decided we were beyond saving. Seokjin's shoulders lifted slightly, then fell. Because I didn't trust myself. I had to build something that could stop me, if I ever crossed the line. You crossed it the moment you pressed upload, Taehyung said, quietly but firmly. Seokjin turned at that. His face wasn't twisted in guilt or pride, just weariness. I know. Namjoon stepped up beside Jungkook. Why us, Hyung? Why betray the people you said you loved? I didn't betray you, Seokjin said. I betrayed the illusion of who we were, the masks we wore, the perfect image I helped build and polish. I shattered it because I couldn't stand the lie anymore. Jungkook walked toward him, slow and cautious. You didn't have to do it alone. Seokjin looked at him. But I was alone. For years, even when we were side by side. Silence stretched again. Then Taehyung took out the extracted flash drive, holding it up. This is the only thing left. Seokjin's eyes locked on it. A flicker of emotion crossed his face. Relief, maybe, or sorrow. Then you hold the real story now. Jimin stepped forward. What if we release it? Seokjin shrugged. Then let the world see us for who we were. Not idols. Not products. Just people. Broken. Brilliant. Human. They stood in a circle of morning light. 5 men who had once been boys chasing dreams. 5 fractured pieces of something once unbreakable. Jungkook looked around, then at the flash drive. "Let's finish what you started," he said. "But on our terms." Namjoon nodded. "No edits. No scripts." Taehyung reached into his bag, pulling out a small, portable camera. "We record one last message." Together, they set up the camera on a tripod, the city skyline behind them, the rising sun painting everything gold. Jimin pressed record. They stood side by side. Jungkook was the first to speak. "If you're watching this, you've seen what we tried to hide. You've seen what they weren't supposed to show." Taehyung followed. "We were never perfect, but we were always real." Jimin, "This isn't a scandal. This is survival." Namjoon, "This is what it costs to be seen." Then Seokjin, stepping forward for the first time. "And this is how we begin again." The video ended. Later that night, the footage was uploaded. Uncut, raw, painful, beautiful. No managers, no PR, just them. A silence followed on the internet. Then an eruption. But this time, the army didn't divide. They listened. They remembered. And for the first time in years, the truth didn't feel like a weapon. Felt like home. The upload shattered the silence. Not with chaos, but with something far more terrifying: clarity. Within hours, the video spread like fire across every platform, across oceans and languages, waking sleeping fandoms, stirring headlines, making even the most indifferent pause. It wasn't polished. It wasn't scripted. It was real. And real hit harder than any scandal. Jimin stared at the screen in their apartment, knees pulled to his chest. He watched as his own face, tired, bare, unsmiling, spoke those final words again and again in endless loops of retweets, stitches, and reaction videos. "This isn't a scandal. This is survival." A line he hadn't even thought about when he said it. But now it was everywhere. Taehyung sat beside him, legs stretched out, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Do you think they understand?" Jimin didn't answer immediately. "Some do. Some won't." Taehyung turned his head slightly. "And the rest? They'll choose sides," Jimin said. "That's what people do." In another room, Jungkook was pacing. He couldn't stop. The messages wouldn't either. Notifications swarmed his phone like wasps. Comments, calls, emails. Some from people he hadn't spoken to in years. Industry insiders, old friends, media threats, armies sobbing, screaming, thanking, accusing. He dropped the phone onto the table and pressed his hands to his face. Then a knock. Soft, almost hesitant. Jungkook opened the door. It was Namjoon, holding a laptop, his face unreadable. "You need to see this," he said. They gathered in the living room, crowded around the screen. Namjoon hit play. It was a live stream, not theirs. Seokjin's. He hadn't vanished. He was broadcasting. The camera was angled low, focused on a desk with only one thing in frame. The flash drive. The original. The one Jungkook had handed back to him after the rooftop message. Seokjin's voice came through the speakers, steady but subdued. "I've spent the last few years collecting the worst parts of us, thinking if I preserved the pain, it wouldn't be for nothing. I thought I was creating history, but I was building a weapon, and I nearly used it on the people I loved most." He paused. "I won't make that mistake again." Then he held up the flash drive. "I'm not going to destroy it, but I'm not keeping it either." The screen shook slightly as Seokjin stood and walked outside. He turned the camera to show where he was. Han River. The sun was just beginning to dip. He crouched down at the river's edge. "This is where we used to come when the world got too loud, when we needed to remember why we started." He placed the drive into a small, weatherproof capsule and buried it under a loose stone at the riverbank. Then he looked back at the camera. "If someone finds it someday, let them decide what it means. But for me, it's no longer a threat. It's just memory." Then the stream ended. Silence fell in the room. Jungkook exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. He let go. Taehyung leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Do we?" Namjoon answered first. "We don't let go. We move forward. That's different." Later that night, Jimin walked alone through the city. He kept his hoodie up, face down, but people recognized him anyway. Some approached with tears, others with hesitation. No one was cruel. Not yet, but he knew it would come. He slipped into a small cafe on a side street, ordered coffee he didn't want, and sat by the window. Across the street, a group of teenagers huddled around a phone, watching the video. One of them, a girl with streaks of purple in her hair, looked up and locked eyes with him through the glass. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just nodded. He nodded back. Then he cried. Not because he was sad, but because he still felt something. Back at the apartment, Taehyung was writing again. Lyrics, scratched across notebook pages, messy and full of questions. Namjoon was fielding calls from the label. Offers, threats, demands for a statement, for damage control. He said no. Again and again. Jungkook was in the studio, not recording, just being there. Feeling the silence. Letting it sit with him like an old friend. And Seokjin? No one heard from him after the livestream. No more posts. No messages. Just the river. And the ghost of the drive beneath the stone. But somehow, for the first time in years, they weren't waiting for someone to save them. They were learning to save themselves. The room was cold. Not physically, but in a way that crept beneath skin and curled around the soul. A rehearsal studio stripped bare, mirrors covered in thick black cloth like a wake had been held for reflection itself. Jungkook stood at the center, headphones dangling from his neck, hands motionless by his sides. No music, no movement, just the beat of memory playing in his chest. Taehyung leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. You going to rehearse or just haunt the floor? I used to need this, Jungkook muttered. The silence, the echo of my own breath. It made me feel grounded. And now it just feels like I'm standing where someone else used to be. Taehyung said nothing, because he understood. Upstairs, Jimin was curled into the corner of their old shared dorm room. Clean now, reorganized after everything, but still echoing with the ghosts of routines and rituals. He held his phone loosely in one hand, watching a video that someone had edited together. Moments from their past, laughter behind the stage, teardrops between performances, hands held too tightly during award speeches. The video wasn't just nostalgia. It was a map, a story told backward. And it hurt. The door creaked open. Namjoon stepped in. We have a meeting in an hour. Jimin didn't move. I don't think I want to go. They'll twist everything if we're not there to speak. I know, but I'm tired of speaking into microphones that only hear what they want. Namjoon sat down beside him, resting his back against the opposite wall. Then maybe we don't speak for them this time. Maybe we speak for us. Across the city, Seokjin stood alone on a rooftop. Not the rooftop, but another one, higher, colder, detached from memory. He looked down at the people rushing below, ants on missions they believed were urgent. He didn't miss the spotlight. He missed the silence after the spotlight. Those seconds of calm when the lights dimmed and the world blinked back to sleep. He reached into his coat and pulled out a letter. No address, no stamp, just a name written in clean, even strokes. Yoongi. Back at the dorm, Jungkook was flipping through old notebooks, dog-eared and fragile. One page caught his eye, a lyric, written in Yoongi's handwriting. We don't become legends by staying whole. We become legends by choosing to stand again, even broken. Jungkook whispered the line aloud. Say that again, Taehyung said, suddenly still. Jungkook repeated it. Taehyung stood. That's the hook. That's the hook. What are you talking about? A song. Not for them. For him. For us. They moved like fire. Like breath. Like instinct. Into the studio. Grabbing cables. Booting ancient systems. Dragging Yoongi's old samples from backup drives. Searching for a heartbeat in the rubble. Jimin and Namjoon joined them within minutes. No questions asked. The song came slowly. Then all at once. Like grief that had waited too long to be named. Layered vocals. Raw strings. A single, aching piano. The title was simple. Honest. Again. They recorded it in one night. No auto-tune.
No corrections.
just trembling voices and unfinished pain. At dawn, they uploaded it anonymously. No names. No tags. Just a black screen and sound. By noon, the world had found it anyway. An army didn't just hear, they felt. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. But it was truth. And in the quiet that followed, Seokjin stood at Yoongi's old studio door, the one none of them had opened since the silence began. He stepped inside. The air was still, dusty, sacred. There, on the mixing board, was a note. Yoongi's handwriting. "You'll know when it's time to come back." Seokjin closed his eyes. And for the first time in a long time, he whispered, "I'm sorry." No one heard it. But somehow, somewhere, the apology moved through the world. Like a pulse. Like a beginning. The rain returned like a memory. Soft, insistent. The kind that taps at windows like it's trying to be let in. It slicked the streets in gray and washed the neon signs into watercolor. Jungkook stood beneath the awning of a closed convenience store, hoodie soaked through, watching a woman dance barefoot in the rain across the street, earbuds in, unaware of everything but her song. He envied her. His phone buzzed. Again. A message from Taehyung. "He's ready." Jungkook didn't need to ask who. Back at the studio, Namjoon was seated at the old table with a worn-out notepad, the paper warped from the coffee rings of years past. Jimin leaned in the doorway, arms folded, heart louder than his breath. "Do you think people will forgive him?" Jimin asked. Namjoon didn't look up. "They already started. The rest will take longer." "And us?" Namjoon finally met his eyes. "We already did." The door opened. Seokjin stepped in. No fanfare. No apology on his lips. Just his presence, older somehow, smaller, but still undeniably him. He looked at them all. Paused. Then, almost inaudibly, "I listened to the song." Jungkook entered behind him, dripping from the rain, not bothering to dry off. "We made it for Yoongi." "I know," Seokjin said, "but I felt like it was made for me too." They sat together, the five of them again. An unfinished circle with one piece always missing. Until now. The studio was quiet except for the sound of old systems warming up, the low hum of equipment finding life again. Taehyung reached for a folder, pulling out a sheet of lyrics they'd never finished, scrawled in different handwritings, a patchwork of heartbreak and hope. Seokjin read them. His voice cracked on the third line. He stopped. Namjoon picked it up, filled in the gap. Jimin added harmony. Jungkook adjusted the mic. Taehyung nodded once, slowly, like exhaling. They recorded. No script. No plan. Just five voices reaching for someone who was gone. And for each other, through the fog. That night they returned to the river. The same place Seokjin had buried the flash drive. They dug it out. It was still intact. Untouched. Waiting. "What do we do with it now?" Jungkook asked. Jimin crouched beside the hole. "It was never meant to disappear. It was meant to remind us." "Of what?" Taehyung answered. "Of who we were. Of what we survived." They didn't rebury it. They didn't destroy it. Instead, they opened it. Together. On a laptop with a cracked screen and fading battery. Under the open sky. They watched everything Seokjin had hidden. Unedited moments, confessions, fury, exhaustion. Love so raw it hurt to look at. And when it ended, none of them spoke. Because some stories don't need commentary. Some stories just need to be witnessed. The next day, a post went live. Simple. No photo. No filter. Just words. "We've made mistakes. We've hurt. We've healed. This is who we are now. You can choose to walk with us or not. But we're walking forward." It was signed, for the first time in years, by all of them. RM. Jimin.
Jungkook.
Jeon. The world didn't explode. It listened. And in that rarest of silences, there was grace. They returned to the stage.
No fireworks.
No press.
No sponsors.
Just a small venue in Hongdae. Low ceilings, scuffed floors. The kind of place where voices cracked and sweat mattered more than shine. There were no stylists. No security. No pretense. Only them and the music and the people who still believed. A handwritten sign hung above the entrance. Tonight only Asi again. The line outside wrapped around the block. Some fans brought old light sticks, flickering and half-broken. Some wore shirts from tours long gone. Others carried nothing but hope and heavy hearts. Inside, the air buzzed with nervous energy. 1,000 breaths held tight in chests. Then the lights dimmed. No intro video. No dramatic countdown. Just a voice. Jungkook's, quiet and unfiltered. We used to open shows with fire. Tonight we open with silence. And then we tell the truth. The curtain rose. They stood there. Not idols, not legends, just men who had been broken and had chosen not to stay that way. The first song was the one they made for Yoongi. Again, the crowd sang every word, like it had always been theirs. Jimin's voice trembled on the bridge. He led it, didn't hide, didn't run. Taehyung stepped closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, sang the next line for him. Jungkook's eyes glistened. Namjoon smiled. Seokjin looked out at them all, then lifted his mic. I was afraid to return, he said. Afraid you'd see everything I tried to bury. But you already did. And still, here you are. They played for 2 hours. They laughed. They cried. They forgot lyrics and started over. They told stories they'd never told. About mistakes and anger and nights they'd almost walked away. About Yoongi. About each other. And then, near the end, Namjoon stepped forward with a notebook in hand. He opened it. Yoongi wrote this. Never recorded it. Just left it in the studio one day. He began to read. Don't chase forever. It doesn't exist. Just hold on to the seconds that change you. That break you. That remind you you're still alive. The room was silent. Jungkook whispered, "Play it." So they did. The track was raw, unfinished. A beat Yoongi had made in the quiet after tour. Underneath it, their voices layered in real time, imperfect and whole. As the final note faded, they bowed. Not just to the crowd, but to each other, to themselves, to the journey that had wrecked them and rebuilt them. When they exited the stage, the crowd didn't scream. They wept. It was not the end. It was not the beginning. It was something rarer. Peace. Days later, the media moved on. The scandal lost its edge. The fandom found new fights, new joys. The world kept spinning. But in the quiet moments, on subway rides, late-night walks, whispered confessions in bedroom darkness, people talked about that night. About a band that didn't come back to reclaim a throne, but to say, we are still here. Not as idols, as humans. And that was enough. Somewhere in Seoul, a small brick studio lit up again. Not loud, not famous, just steady. Inside, 6 chairs sat around a mixing table. One would always stay empty, but the music never would.